I hope you got the index section open because it's about to get optimal as all get out here at Rip Daddies. I'm Dave Makes Noises, and you're hopefully ready to lawyer some rules with us as we ask the internets, what is one of the most OP D&D character builds that you've come across? Part 2. The one that I came across, considered briefly about playing before I tossed it out the window for fun over min-maxing, was the concept of a rogue and paladin in 5th edition. Going the assassin route, since you can promise a critical hit on sneak attacking, and by scoring a critical, not only doubling your sneak dice, but then doubling smite damage. Sneak attack is enough to concern some encounters with, but then deciding after a critical hit that you wish to add smite onto that as well? You just build a dual-wielding paladin rogue that is dex-based with 2-weapon fighting, and for such a simple trade-off, you got a pretty powerful class that is ready to really dish out the hurt. Another one I considered as well was the Shadow Ninja. 2 levels of Warlock to gain the Devil's Sight to see through magical darkness. 3 levels of Monk to gain Way of the Shadow so you can now cast darkness. Potential to go all the way to 6 to gain Shadow Step. Levels in Rogue for that wonderful sneak attack. Then you have a character after level 7 that casts magical darkness that only you can see through, thus making all your attacks at advantage that would proc sneak attack and all your foes strike you at disadvantage. I was fond of Uberchargers in 3.5. It's been a while, so some of the specifics are hazy, but between abilities to multiply damage on a charge, getting increased power attack trade-offs, and having enough accuracy to eat full power attack penalties without missing, you end up with a character who can charge anything, kill it, and cleave all of its friends within reach, and kill them too. I've done this with several distinct builds, but the overall effect is the same. I've also made several builds with unhittable AC. At one point, the DM tried to assassinate my character with a stealthed sneak attack with an ethereal weapon. This should have taken away both armor bonus and dex bonus to AC, which in most characters would flatten their AC to the base 10. This character was still unhittable even with this. Didn't really have much offense to speak of, though. These characters also suffered from things not always caring about AC. So it's still rather limited overall, but in the right cases, it was super broken. One of my favorites was a druid who put everything into enhancing his animal companion, from spells to alternative classes features. The end result was a bear that could trivially beat up Tarrasques. A half-black dragon war troll can regenerate from any and all damage, and with the right prestige class becomes immune to non-lethal damage, which is technically all damage since regeneration converts damage not of the type you are weak to, non-lethal damage. You have to do this without losing your con score though, as you need to have con to have regeneration. That one prestige class gave you the non-lethal immunity 1 level before removing your con score though. Some of my friends had builds that could cast Quickened Revivify nearly at will. Someone dies, they are instantly resurrected with no level loss. Ghosts in general are really OP. To start, they are ethereal, which is super good, but they also have a touch attack that drains attributes. Nearly everything has some attribute that is low and easily drained completely. The Nightcrawler build. A great friend of mine discovered this wickedly powerful and insanely OP build while we were in a superhero-themed campaign. I should probably mention that this was Gestalt character, 3.5 edition, so no real penalties for cross-classes. Honestly, it's almost a necessity for min-maxing characters, especially if you plan on making something ridiculous. He won't tell me what feats and such he took, but he did tell me the classes he took, which are Fighter, Rogue, Swashbuckler, Wizard, Totemist, Umbral Disciple, Soulcaster, Telflamar Shadowlord. That's a lot. Now, in combat, he was nigh untouchable. He could, as a free action, teleport short distances. These teleports would trigger free opportunity attacks for him. Eventually, it got to the point that he could full attack after teleporting. If an enemy tried to attack him, he could teleport away, which gave him more attacks. Instead of moving, he could teleport and do more of the same. And all this didn't take away from his actual full attack. There was a limit to this madness, but I can't think of what it was. I think he was only limited to so many of these per combat, maybe per day. That I can recall, he could full attack, teleport, full attack again. And all the while, he was considered flanking with himself. Careful manipulation of rules and all that. Regardless, he could take on scores of enemies and laugh as he jumped around the battlefield, cutting down scores of enemies. By definition, the strongest character in D&D is Pun Pun. The 3.5 build is a first-level kobold paladin with skill focus, knowledge, religion. The idea is you use your knowledge religion to summon and make a deal with a chicken demon named Pazuzu, who loves corrupting paladins, which you leverage into an infinite wish loop and then transition to using the Sarik's manipulate form ability to, by rules as written, just make up overpowered abilities like Pun's movement speed in all modes is infinite. 42 seconds to literal omnipotence. Slightly less powerful is the Omnisificer, the 4th level artificer with infinite skill checks. There are some magic rings, which the artificer can make for cheap, that can share damage between people. A couple of sets of these, a delay death effect, and a little drowning, and you have an infinite damage loop, but can survive that damage long enough to heal yourself. There's also an invocation that gives bonuses to all of your skill checks equal to the amount of damage you've just taken. Use your infinite diplomacy and intimidate to bully the gods around, your infinite spellcraft and arcana to make your bonuses permanent, and your infinite heal to heal all that damage. The 1d2 Crusader. There exists a stance and a feat in 3.5 that trigger if you roll a damage die for either its minimum or maximum value, and which allow you to re-roll that die and add the new result to the damage dealt. If you wield a weapon that deals 1d2 damage, then either way you roll one of these abilities triggers, causing an infinite damage loop. The Hulking Hurler. A Warhulk hulking hurler cancer mage. The cancer mage makes one immune to all the negative effects of disease, but not the positive ones. There exists a disease that increases your strength permanently, and due to the way carrying capacity scales with high strength scores, quadruples every 5 days, every day you suffer from it. Basically, anyone else would be dead within a week, but not the cancer mage. Hulking Hurler and Warhulk give a bunch of abilities keyed to using massive objects as thrown weapons. Within a year or two, you can juggle planets and stars. The Shadowcraft Mage is a hilariously broken prestige class, including stuff that can make illusions more real, if you disbelieve them, given some optimization. Combine that with Heightened Spell and Earth Spell, and you can even make illusory miracles with this property. The Shadow Cookie. There's this lovely spell called Delicate Disc that lets you contain spells of up to 6th level with Earth Spell indefinitely, to be released when the disc is shattered. This doesn't even really qualify as a build though, unless you do something like using Shadowcraft Mage to bypass the 200 gold piece material component, meaning you can build up a nigh infinite supply of the discs over time. Various versions of the Diplomancer concept, just like the Jumplomancer, there's a prestige class called the Exemplar that can be used to help get skill checks for a particular skill in the multiple hundreds. The Exemplar also allows you to use any skill in place of a performance check, and once you hit epic levels of skill and perform, it can be used in place of a diplomacy check. Cue the Jumplomancer, who can leap something like a kilometer, and ensure it's so impressive that people will do whatever he wants. This general Exemplar build also permits the Arceplomancer, who will climb inside your butt and kill you from inside. The Anti-Osmium Lich. The idea is that you use major creation to create several cubic meters of the densest metal in the world, in the form of antimatter, which when it comes in contact with regular matter, will annihilate and release pure energy. You survive the explosion so large it would destroy half the Earth. We're talking quadrillions of d6s of damage, by being a lich with a phylactery kept in another dimension, or by astral projecting with a nightmare, or any of several other options. There are 2 incredibly powerful builds I've seen as a DM, both made by one of my players. The first was a half-elf sorcerer paladin. In a typical round, 5th level, this character dealt upwards of 100 damage. He would attack with green flame blade, smite, and then quicken fireball or animate objects. The sorcerer's spell slots let him use smite far more often than if he were straight paladin. The second character this player built was a 5th level druid barbarian. At the beginning of battles, he would polymorph into a bear with 50 hit points and rage. Every round, he would get multi-attack from the bear and dish out 40-odd damage. The kicker, though, was his hit points. Rage gave him resistance to most damage, and he could expend all 50 hit points as a bear and return to full health. Since he could polymorph twice, this effectively gave him 100 temporary hit points. In the beta, untested, upcoming stuff from the Wizards of the Coast website, they had a psionic type class. One of the subclasses for this was called the Wu-Gen, and had control over the elements of earth, air, fire, water, force, wood, and I think metal/steel. Think Avatar Plus. The whole class was unbalanced, but the Wu-Gen in particular was a bit OP as written. For instance, it could summon an elemental of earth, water, fire, or air, like the Conjure Elemental spell, as an action and have it run around for an hour. The Conjure Elemental spell takes either 1 or 10 minutes to cast and is a concentration spell. With the Force discipline, my Wujen was creating a Force barrier, which was like Mage Armor but gave 1 more AC and resistance to Force damage. It's one of a handful of skills that gave Force resistance. There was a Healing discipline that gave Revivify as a 0-cost action, and Major Healing as a minor setback in power. I was as powerful as a wizard and gained power almost exponentially, and all but a few of my skills were actions. There's a reason the Scion class wasn't taken out of beta. Hello, nerds. I hope these numbers were as crunchy for you as they were crunchy for me. If you've got an insanely OP build that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to share it in the comments below. If you have another story you would like to share with us, please do so on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. If you just drew up an OP build of your own and are looking for a DM crazy enough to let you try it out, you may have some luck on MrRipper's Group Finder Discord server. If you want to enjoy some live story time with the boys or perhaps a D&D campaign with the crew, please check out the stream links below for our weekly streams. I hope this week you are able to tune into your subjective reality and identify the direction that all of the signs are pushing you towards. If you love me and wish to manifest joy in my heart, feel free to follow me on TikTok at Dave Makes Noises. Thanks again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s. Ring the ding-a-ling to make our hearts sing. We love you, and we'll see you next time.